This is a 70s era competition revolver. People don't really make or use guns like this anymore. This was designed to throw this load for pure accuracy. I think the outfit that made this, Clark Custom Combat, I think they would guarantee that these would hold 1 inch at 50 yards in a machine rest with the wad cutter loads. And in the era this was made, what was called PPC competition would have been a real big thing. That's what this would have been made for. It was all about accuracy, and there was a time component, but the time allowance was pretty generous. There was no attempt to duplicate real-world shooting conditions. It was just, how well can you punch little groups on the paper? So, this is vintage 148 grain hollow base wad cutter ammunition that showed up with a trade-in gun. This ammo is probably 70s era, maybe 60s. And this was once basically the standard training cartridge for police departments. It was what was used in handgun competitions of various types. People would use it just for plinking and for range practice. It was very commonly available. You would even see gun writers of that era in magazines suggesting it as a defensive load for people who were sensitive to recoil. It's a light load. It's not designed for power. It's designed for accuracy. The bullet is seated all the way down in the case. That's to take up airspace. And that is done to increase accuracy. When you have airspace more airspace in the case means more mechanical variation of velocity. And these are basically cylindrical flat-ended bullets. They are designed to cut as clean a hole as possible in the paper so you can make sure your bullet cuts that scoring ring. This is a 90s era optical sight. It is not part of the original setup. I think this gun originally would have had a heavy, like a Bomar type sighting rib on it, open sights. And you can see it's got a slant compensator built into it. And that really does work. I mean, these guns were designed to enable you to shoot as accurately as possible at speed. So they're all set up to minimize recoil. That's why the barrel's so heavy. It has this removable under-barrel weight, and it has the compensator feature. If you watch while I'm firing, you'll see a plume of gas jet up out of that compensator. It really does work. It's also had accurizing features added, like the crane ball, detent. Partly because, you lose the front locking feature on the ejector rod, but that was thought to enhance accuracy. And it has a super low weight action. And the trigger's been modified. It had a trigger stop built into it. That's another accuracy enhancing feature. It's to halt over travel of the trigger, which can disturb your aim while the hammer is actually still falling. Does that make a difference? Yeah, it actually does. It actually does make a difference in mechanical accuracy. And at the higher levels, these guys are so good that they're winning matches on, hundredths of an inch. And they have a deep hollow base. And that is so the bullet will obturate and completely fill the bore, grip the rifling well, have a full bearing surface its entire length, all created for delivering mechanical accuracy and giving you good scores on the paper. So, here we go. I'm shooting from a rest because I want to isolate for pure mechanical accuracy, just to see what everything is going to do. I'm going to use a hole similar to what the competition guys would have done. This was from barricade shooting. They would have braced the gun against the side of a wooden barricade. It was to simulate shooting from cover for police training. So this is what they would do. cylinder full through the competition revolver. And we also have another 70s era gun. This was basically police standard issue for most of the United States in that time. The departments that they weren't using 357s, although this same gun was made as a 357. They generally would have been issued blued. Some guys carried nickel guns like this. A whole lot. It varied, but this is from 1978. So these guns are from the same era. And we will see what they do with the vintage ammunition. Really all I'm doing now is I'm comparing what would have been a typical police service revolver from the same era with the accuracy of the competition gun. Naturally, I expect the competition gun to give a better showing. It was designed for optimal accuracy with this ammunition particularly, but I expect this to do quite well also. There's no reason to believe it will shoot a group that is that much larger. I mean, somewhat, plus also I have the advantage of the dot optical sight on the other gun, so there'll be some loss of sighting error, but I expect this to do quite well also. I don't know if I'll still be able to use, no, I'm not going to be able to use that same hold because of the shorter barrel and the different shape. So this time, we'll try resting the whole entire gun up here and using a conventional grip. I definitely feel more vigorous recoil because the gun is lighter, and of course it doesn't have the compensator feature either. Still very gentle to shoot this heavy all-steel with a light target load. So far. There we go. You see the holes I marked from the previous target?
Yeah.
There really is basically no difference in overall group size. Two shots are touching there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the service revolver shoots these just as well. And obviously, you know, shooter error is a factor. It could also be that this is not an ideal load for this. And, you know, guys who shot these things, they were all hand loading for them. They were going until they would find a load that it really liked that delivered pinpoint accuracy. But, you know, the informal test, I didn't expect them to be this comparable. Let's give it one more cylinder full. To clamp the boat at a machine rest and fire larger groups, we will definitely see this one shooting a smaller one overall. that's what it's meant to do. It has a match grade barrel, but it's really not uncommon to see off-the-shelf revolvers shoot extremely well, and even match guns don't deliver performance that's that much better. That's something that's now been forgotten. People don't realize that a quality revolver will typically deliver a very high level of accuracy, far more so than typical service autos. It's not unusual to see groups from a revolver being, 1/3 the size of the group from the auto. So, good results. I expect to see more of the same.
Are you holding dead center?
I'm using a traditional 6 o'clock hold.
Okay.
So these sights are very well regulated. That's not always the case with fixed sight revolvers. Sometimes they're off. These are very well regulated. Most of the 4-inch Smiths I've shot are. Some of them you'll see off. So this gun is actually from the time where Smith & Wesson was really suffering quality control problems, and they put out a lot of guns that were not up to their usual standards. This is a good example. Everything about it looks good. I don't see any of the signs I typically find on other 70s era guns, which is rougher finish, rougher tool marks. The polishing isn't as nice, but this is a particularly nice example. I'm not seeing any of that going on. And this still has the fitted grips from the factory that are numbered to the gun. They dropped that in the 80s, and they stopped using these grips altogether eventually. But this is from the time when these grips were fitted to this particular gun and numbered to it at the factory. And most policemen in that era just kept these grips. They didn't change them. The guys who were into guns would sometimes change them out for things like this, the old Packmeyer presentation grip. And this one's modified a little. I took some material off there and there, mostly as an experiment, but. So this is factory stock in every way for the late 70s. There we go. So the service gun has put in a very good showing. Our second group got 3 shots just barely touching there. 4, 5, and 6. Basically the same size group. We do have this gun sighted for a different load. It's sighted for a 158 grain semi-wad cutter load with 4 grains of Winchester 231, and that was a real accuracy load I found for that gun. I was able to shoot a group of 2 3/8 inches at 50 yards with that load. So, I mean, without trying different loads, it's not a conclusive test by any means. But it's interesting to see that the service gun is very comparable to the competition one from the same time period, with what would have been typical match ammo of that era. This was also what police were typically using in training, although by the 70s that was going away. They were starting to use full power ammunition. It's hardly a conclusive test. Only thing I was surprised by somewhat was that the service gun did almost exactly the same as the competition gun. I mean, I'm sure if we shot each one a bunch more, we would see a generally smaller group from the competition gun. But it's really not that big of a difference. Maybe if we stretched out to 50 yards, which was the final stage for the competition that this would have been built for, we'd probably start to see some more differences then. Probably by 50 yards, then it would start to be really noticeable. But at 25, I mean, it's hardly that much different, is it?